So you've been watching this channel for quite some time now, and you've developed the interest to start your own fish farm. 2024 happens to be the year you can and you should start your farm. So you can start your fish farm in the next couple of days using these few steps. The first thing you like to consider will be your site selection. So with site selection, the first thing you want to look out for is the land. And you're asking yourself a couple of questions. Where is my land? Is it easy for me to drive to the land? Does the land get easily flooded? What are the possible natural occurrences that could affect your farm? Because in some locations you are prone to earthquake, some locations are prone to flood, amongst other things. Also, you would like to look at the topography of the soil. So you will take a look at what kind of soil, and then it will inform what kind of setup you can have over there. The next thing you like to look at when it comes to your land is also access to water. So there are some places where you may probably not be closer to a stream, and then you would want to probably sink a borehole. And in some locations, we have heavy metals, we have the water being extremely salty. So you want to look at all of these possibilities. And then one of the things I normally do tell people, you can go before you sink the borehole, you can go and ask people around the vicinity if there's anybody who has sunk a borehole over there, and then you can take a look at that water. It will inform you what kind of water you have available and in what volume. The volume will also let you know what capacity you can set up in your farm. And then also, I normally do tell farmers, look out for a plan B. So if there is a stream closer to you, there are times where the stream will dry up, and so you want a backup plan, which could be a borehole, or you can also have a pipe bomb also installed around the farm, so that at every single point in time, water is not a problem for you, because your fish is going to live their entire life in water. The next thing you like to look out for is your pond design and construction. So in terms of designing your pond, based on the information you've received from the kind of site, you would want to sit down and draw something down. My farm, when I started my farm, I had a design written down, which I always looked up to, because you want a design that can allow you to tweak your farm, because definitely there will be some upgrades and some changes that you do in your farm. So you want a design that is not too rigid, but then it is open to some changes. Secondly, the principle for your design should be based on the flow of water, meaning that it shouldn't take too long for water to flow into the pond, and it shouldn't take too long for water to flow out of the pond. That will inform how close your reservoir is supposed to be to your setup, and whether you need some pumps to be able to pump the water fast enough. And then also, with respect to your drainage, how you channel the pipe so that you don't waste too much time in trying to change water in your pond. Subsequently, any other addition will be to your taste, but make sure you work with this principle. The next thing you can quickly consider is water quality management. As I said earlier on, your fish live their entire lives in water, and for that matter, the quality of water will translate into the quality of your produce. So there are two different components you are looking for. The first is the source water. That is the water you are going to use to culture your fish. So whether it's a borehole, whether it's rainwater, whether it's from your well, pipe bomb, it doesn't matter. But you need to test that water. So for source water, what you can do is you can take a sample into a bottle, and then you can take it to the CSIR Water Research Institute. They can run a test on that for you. It will take about 10 days, and they'll give you a result, and you know what are the components available in the water. And in some situations, they would also tell you how you can make sure the water is good enough for your production. So in some situations, you have to buffer the water, amongst other things. So the next thing you like to look out for is the cultured specie water. And this is the water that you have your fish in your pond. And what you would like to do over here is you want to make sure you have the requisite tools and equipment to run periodic tests in your farm. So you can run tests on your source water from time to time to make sure that the parameters are not too far off the initial test that you did before you even decided to start your farm. And then also for the cultured specie water too, you want to make sure that you are running checks from time to time for maximum health of your fish. It is very important that you pay attention to the kind of species you are trying to culture, because every kind of fish does have a different parameter that they work with. So you have to understand what kind of parameter my species is interested in, and then you try to make sure that you work across those lines. Some species you may require a lot more DO as compared to other species, so you like to pay attention to a lot of these parameters, which will be very helpful for your production. So the next thing that you like to pay attention to has to do with disease. A lot of farmers do start their farm without knowing what kind of disease they are going to encounter. Therefore, it is important that you know what kind of disease is specific to your species, and then also look at the next thing, that is how to prevent that disease. So now that you know about the kind of disease that is prevalent to your species, you would also want to make sure you have a fish vet or a consultant on standby to teach you the first aid measures before your fish is even attended to, because when there's a problem with your fish, sometimes it doesn't take up to 24 hours. You can lose the entire production. So when you know these things down and you prepare for them adequately, in situations where you face any of these challenges in your farm, you are already on top of your game. So the next thing you would like to look out for is to build your farm. And when I say build your farm, make sure that you have all the inputs or the raw materials quite readily available for you to commence your build. And then there are a few key areas you need to focus on. Make sure you have a storeroom to keep your feed and other equipment. And then also make sure that you have experts coming in to do the work for you. Other than that, you will spend a little bit more in trying to correct the problems that may arise as a result of using regular people to build the farm. There are many farms that we visited where we had to do a lot of corrections because in the beginning an expert was not consulted to do the setup on behalf of the farmer. But for square tanks, we have shown you how to do the setup, and so there's a full video up here that will show you how to set up your square tank, and then you can have your fish in that particular tank. The next thing after build is to make sure that you clean the entire setup. So whatever pond that you have to clean the pond and sterilize the pond. So depending on what kind of system that you used, you want to make sure you completely sterilized the pond. Before we go into my next point, which is stocking of your fish and then also procuring the feed. So the next important point you like to look out for is your stocking. That has to do with the kind of fish you start with and then also with the feed. I tell farmers, don't go in for fingerlings, go for juveniles, because they are older and they are easier to take care of as compared to the fingerlings in the initial stages of you beginning your farm. So after you've identified the source of your healthy juveniles, the next thing you have to note is your stocking density, which has to do with the capacity of your pond. Many farmers, because they have a pond and the price of the juvenile is somehow cheap, they go and they buy as many as possible. But that is a wrong act. You have to make sure that you stock your fish per pond, and generally we are looking at 10 liters per 1 kg of fish. That is for the stocking density for catfish, and for tilapia, we are looking at about almost 25 liters per 1 kg of fish. Secondly, you want to make sure you don't just have just one pond. Minimum you should have is 2 to 3 ponds, so that yes, you can sort into those ponds, but then also you enjoy the luxury of being able to harvest in different cycles. So your market will not necessarily have to wait extra 6 months again before you harvest from your farm. Then you like to take into account the total quantity of feed for the entire production. So don't go and start a farm without knowing how much feed the fish is going to use within the space of your culturing period. With that particular information, you can now budget adequately for that, And then also you can also factor in some amount of inflation, maybe like 15 to 20% inflation, depending on where you find yourself. Many a times I get this question, then it is ideal that I buy the feed for the entire 6 months. I normally do not recommend that you buy the feed for the entire 6 months. Probably you can buy feed for the next 2 months so that some of the vitamin in the feed is not lost, because when you keep the feed for a very long time, you may lose some of the vitamins that may be very essential to the growth of your fish. Then the next thing you like to look out for is training. With all of these investments put together, if there isn't any training, you are leaving the profitability of your business to chance. Many farmers have started their fish farm and they have made a lot of loss because they did not get training. Therefore, it is required that you try and train not just the people who are going to attend to the fish, but you, the owner of the farm, as well. Because there are times where people who you've employed in your farm may be making a couple of mistakes, and you, as the owner of the farm, you need to make the call. So when it comes to training, Lartman Farms, we have a training which is available, and you can go to our website on www.lartmanfarms.com and you can access the training. But then also we visit farms where we train the farmers in that particular farm. We also do organized personalized training for farmers. And so if you're interested in any of these personalized trainings, you can reach out to us via the comment section or our contact or our WhatsApp line, and we will discuss with you how well we can make that happen. Also, do not understate or underestimate the workload of your farm. Reason why many farms break down is because people take the farm for granted, and the activities that you are supposed to perform daily, we sometimes do not perform them. So if you have a farm and you are facing any challenge and you would like to get back on track, the next video is going to teach you how to organize your farm in 2024 to make good profit. So take note of these things. We'd like to see you same time next week.